Hello and welcome to Broadcast Focus. My name is Russell Trapper-Jones and thanks for joining me for a look, as ever, behind the scenes of the broadcast, media and entertainment industry. Today we're picking up again on our radio theme. A few shows ago we had Valentijn Siebrandts speaking to us about the Netherlands, talking about how his decades of working in the Dutch community radio scene have led to, well, a fascinating conversation about how radio works differently in different countries, how progress comes with compromises in terms of coverage, and how the government and public broadcasters can leverage the power and connectedness of community radio to provide a full, detailed news service to the whole country. We then talked to Phil Hager, who spent years in Zambia, where he set up 2 radio stations, one being the very first non-governmental radio station, and there's more radio-related content to come. Both of these conversations were brilliant and very enjoyable. Why are we having these conversations? Well, really, just to celebrate the fact that Radio TechCon is fast approaching at the end of this month. And to find out why that's worth noting, we have the Managing Director of the Radio Academy and Director of Radio TechCon with us. Today it's Aradhna Tayal Leach. Aradhna, welcome to the show.
Hi, thanks so much for having me, Russell.
Glad to have you with us. And, it's something that I've always enjoyed the last few years of going to Radio TechCon. It's a conference which I personally enjoy and just wanted to put some content around it so that we could signpost people. There's no affiliation. It's just generally it's a good conference to go to. And we've got some proof of that coming up. We'll take a look at some previous year's videos. But let's start on the ground. Can you give us a little bit of intro onto what Radio TechCon is, how it came about, and your involvement?
Yeah, of course. So Radio TechCon is the UK conference for people working in the technical side of audio and radio. So that's everything from broadcast engineers, transmission engineers, studio engineers, also tech-savvy producers. As we know more and more these days, production and technology are colliding, which is a brilliant thing that leads to more creativity and more innovation and opportunity. So it's very much a place to celebrate and talk about all things technology and engineering in the audio space. It's been running actually for many, many years, probably well over 30 years in some guise or the other. I became director with my co-director and Charles back in 2016 when we took over the running of Radio TechCon under our company TBC Media Limited. Prior to that, it was actually part of the Radio Academy and their Radio Festival, which is a multi-day event and a half-day dedicated to the technical community. So in 2016, the Radio Festival slightly changed style, became a one-day event. And we, Anne and I, and our colleague Andy Buckingham, who joined us at the time, with the committee that used to put together the editorial content for TechCon, we felt very strongly that this was a really important place, and in fact, the only place in the UK for the technical community to be able to come together, move past all those competitive divides that you see in your day-to-day jobs and lives, and be able to really geek out and talk all things technology and engineering. What's coming up? What are the new standards? What are the things we need to know? What have we been working on? What have we learned that we can share with others and learn from each other? Who's got the new latest technology and equipment that we can see that we might want to start implementing in our own studios? And it goes across, BBC, commercial radio, student radio, community and not-for-profit radio stations, podcasts. So it's really broad, and you have everything from, some of the biggest, say, BBC projects, learning from a real grassroots student-led app that they've developed, and everyone's gone, wow, that's a brilliant idea. We just wouldn't have thought about that. So it's a really kind of melding of minds, and we think of it as a really strong community. So as I said, we are an important part of the obviously audio broadcasting sector. There would not be any broadcasting without technology, of course. but we're able to move past the usual competitive boundaries and have a very open, nurturing space where the community can come together. We can learn from each other. We can share. We can inspire each other. And ask all the questions that, there's no stupid questions. You may be a transmission engineer and never worked in a studio, so you might want to be learning the basics. Or you might have been working in a space for 30 years and you want to know, okay, well, what's new? What's coming up? What should I be looking out for over the next year or next 5 years? So real broad range across the day. Coming up in a couple of weeks, on the Monday, the 25th of November, we'll be at the IET London in Savoy Place, and tickets are now available. We really hope that you'll come and join us.
Yeah, it's certainly worth doing, and I echo the feeling of the community, because there is such a wide range, and I know you run a bursary scheme which helps bring people to London who wouldn't otherwise be able to afford it, because of course if you're going to bring hospital radio and community radio and not-for-profit radio, there isn't always the cash hanging around in the station to get someone on the train and bring them down. So that's really important, and it works. And there's all sorts of people that you talk to, and bringing the commercial sector and BBC and public together is really good as well. It seems to me, would you say it's fair to say it kind of thrives on exchanging ideas rather than being kind of a technical, specs, understand this, understand that, this is how you do it kind of session?
Yeah, definitely. So, of course, many technical conferences around the world have a period where they have a request for papers, and you've got to submit academic papers, and you're selected to present. And I think that has its space. It's very important. It's not how we operate at Radio TechCon. So I referred to the committee that we have. Those are volunteer members of different parts of the radio sector. So people from BBC Technology, from Bauer Media, from Global, from News, also from various suppliers, including our headline sponsor, Broadcast Bionics. So we have a real range of people and expertise from within broadcast engineering who come together, and we collectively and collaboratively put together the programme each year. So everybody comes with ideas, a speaker that I've heard, a technology that I've heard of, and I'd like to know a little bit more about what it is. Well, can we as a committee go and find out and reach out to someone to come and talk to us about it? We make a special effort to reach out and find those people that you don't normally find standing on a stage talking about technology, often because they're so busy actually doing the job. But we want to hear from them. We put a lot of effort into the diversity of speakers on stage. And that's everything from the sheer diversity of broadcast technology to different types of speakers, different levels of expertise, like where you are in your career and what you're working on. And I really love to nurture and hear from slightly less confident speakers who aren't doing the world circuit, but have something really interesting to say that we've not heard before. That said, we do also cover, there's a new standard that's come out. Let's talk about what that means. What's the impact going to be on us? What do we need to know about it? We have these things called mini masterclasses. So as I said, you might be from a different field of broadcast engineering and not have the same knowledge as someone else who sat next to you on one topic. So our mini masterclasses are designed to take a topic, for example, acoustics, and take you from zero, what actually is acoustics, why is it important, how is it relevant in a studio environment, all the way up to, and here's what's new, here's the latest technology, here are the latest trends that we're seeing, this is the latest breaking research. So whether you just get the first 10 minutes of that where you suddenly go, oh, okay, I never knew what that was, or if you have a refresher and then suddenly you're learning all of the latest, there's kind of something there for everyone. And we always, we try and make it very relevant to the industry. So it's not just a technical conference. It's about how we nurture that community that I was talking about. So we'll have topics on transferable skills in the sector, how to look after our recruitment pipeline, we've had topics on promoting STEM in schools, science, technology, engineering and maths, and how to encourage younger people to get into careers in technology and especially broadcast technology. We cover how to deal with stress at work and mental well-being at work, how to look after your staff, how to look after freelancers, managing freelancer finances. So that's everything, including the technical side and the technical standards, to how we look after our industry and make sure that we've got a fully inclusive and safe industry that's therefore set to thrive. We're also really keen on making sure that we cover topics that we feel are very important, such as sustainability. So most years we'll try to look at, okay, what is the latest thing, and what is it that our audience, the people who are coming along, what is it that they need to know specifically? So, for example, how can you as a smaller company make use of things like a carbon calculator? How do you look at the scope 3 element, which is your supplier pipeline? What does that mean, and how can you do it in a meaningful way that's actually going to help you as a business look after your sustainability goals? So it's really quite broad, and I think we work hard to make sure that it feels very inclusive. You've got everything from hardcore maths and equations on the screen to the moments where you just look around and ask how everyone's doing today.
I think it's important, if you're interested in your industry, and if you're part of the media and entertainment industry, part of radio, wherever you find yourself, I think if you care about it, then it makes sense to me, in my mind, that you would want that industry generally to be better. And so it's not like, let's say, going to university, where there's a whole layer of people who are there supposed to be making the university good for you, because you're the student and they're the lecturers, etc. Right? We're all making the industry whatever it is, and therefore I really first realized this at Radio TechCon, seeing how you're merging these topics and making it really clear that there's loads of really cool tech we can do, and we can do this event and we can broadcast on the Falkland Islands really easily, this, that and the other. But if we don't make sure that when we've got people going to OBs and getting stressed out with 15-hour days, if we don't look after those people, we don't look after ourselves, then what's the point? Why are we doing this to ourselves? So I think that's really good. We've got a few videos I wanted to kind of give a little bit of an airing, because it's a great example. So these are from previous years, and they are available. And so we'll have a look. And I just wanted to talk about 3 different topics which really get to the bottom of what you were talking about a moment ago. So the first one I'm going to play is this one from Ukraine. We'll watch a very small portion of it, and as you can see, it's on YouTube to be watched. There's 2 here, one from Ukraine, one from Afghanistan, highlighting the importance and the difficulties of having radio in an area of conflict.
The Ukrainian radio transmitter for more than 2 weeks. Thanks to this, Ukrainian radio was the only source of information in the already occupied territory, and people could hear information about humanitarian corridors, about other things they really needed.
So that's from Ukraine. That was a live. You can see the Skype logo there. I'm going to play this one from Afghanistan.
We have problems. If you want to have a strong coverage, we need to extra antennas and extra repeaters and that things, which is a geographical issue for Afghanistan. And also the other issue, which is the cost, because I just mentioned the 40 years. But the economy of Afghanistan goes to zero, to near to zero, and we have a very their problems, what the importance of the technical equipment, because we are not in the relationship, and good relationship with the countries which they are producing on the manufacture of the technical equipment for the broadcast, like camera, like microphone, mixers, and other things.
So 2 videos there, both live from those areas. I mean, this must go surely back to what you were saying earlier about somebody says, "Oh, this would be really, really interesting," and then you kind of find some way to make that talk possible. It can't be easy.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, both of those were entirely thanks to this brilliant committee that I keep referring to, 2 different producers from the committee who were both engineers at 2 different broadcasters, who through their work had made contact with each of the speakers. So the Ukraine video, I mean, at the time, this was in 2022, so very fresh. I think 6 or 7 months into the conflict. The broadcast, it was incredible that we were able to get a live feed, and that the speaker was able to give us that time. I think they really appreciated as well being able to talk about what it is that they're doing. Obviously, they're so focused on keeping on air, which is super important for the country and for people and morale. But of course, behind all of that, there's this real technical genius of, well, how do you physically keep doing that? How do you actually get out on the airwaves when there's literally a war going on around you, and one of the targets of war is obviously cutting communications. So the speaker joined us from a secret location, that just to protect their own safety and the safety of their team, and took the time to talk to us about some of the real challenges that they'd faced, how they overcame them. Of course, there's a little bit about why they were doing it, but what's really unique to Radio TechCon is that, of course, we're all very aware of these conflicts that are going on. We're very aware of the importance. I think it's fair to say that we all understand the absolute vital importance of communication and radio's place in that. Radio TechCon is this unique place where we actually learn how do you actually do it? How does that work? And also a little bit then of, okay, that's interesting. So what do I learn from that? What do I need to implement into my networks? How can we help? How can I, as a technology supplier, be innovating and working on systems or networks that might help broadcasters in places like that? What do we need to do to make sure that we're future-proof? So, there's real lessons to be learned from it, as well as just a really fascinating story. And similarly with the speaker in Afghanistan, times of huge conflict and personal safety and danger. We've had similar sort of talks from other broadcasters around the world as well. It takes you out of your world. We're sitting here in the lovely Savoy Place in London, and it's just a moment where it takes you away from that and just reminds you what it is that we, the engineers, are doing, why we do this, how our colleagues around the world are managing it, and kind of growing that community beyond, the safety of our room to the community around the world of, of radio broadcasters and especially technologists, and how it's important that we continue to come together and support each other at times like this, and just keep remembering why it is that we're doing this.
Yeah, no, you're right, and it felt very ethereal listening to that live. And as you say, it was so fresh. Certainly the Ukraine one, and I think to contrast it against what the Afghanistani speaker was saying, where they've had years now, over a decade, of problems of all sorts of different shapes and sizes, that it's an important reminder about how these things kind of fit together. And you were talking on your sustainability track really about whether we should be considering turning off large transmitters. And of course, they're kind of the best thing you've got in those important times. Yet, obviously, increasingly, it doesn't make sense sustainability-wise to keep them on. You had a debate on stage, and that was it's a nice format. They are on the Radio TechCon YouTube channel. So if you were in any way touched by those, then do go and listen to the whole story, because it's fascinating. What I wanted to do is go on to another one. This one is more about looking after the workforce.
Free nationwide program for all employers in the UK who simply do recognise the value and importance of older workers, are committed to improve work for people in their 50s and 60s and beyond, and are prepared to take action to help them flourish in a multi-generational workforce. So the multi-generational workforce means that ability to have that natural spread of ages in your organisation. And the OECD some years ago, before COVID, said that a 10% higher proportion of older workers equates to 1.1% again in terms of productivity gains. And a German researcher also stated that multi-generational workforce, again, drives innovation. It's not rocket science, really. It's that ability to think, yes, we do need to make sure we have all of our talents in the business.
So it almost seems obvious in retrospect, but I just don't think we necessarily talk about it. First of all, let's just acknowledge that companies are always saying we can't find enough people, we can't find the right people. And that speaker was really highlighting that it would make a lot of sense if we put in that extra bit of thinking, made it clear that age is a protected characteristic. So we've got to legally make sure everybody's on the level playing field. But on the other hand, there are things that can be done within the workplace to make it an easier place for people who are 55 or older to be in, both culturally and otherwise. So yes, as much as we want to talk about getting young people in, I think just that refreshing point of view is like, we don't forget about the old people. That's for me a really good example of how there's kind of a rounded look at the industry on the talks.
Yeah, I think that was a really interesting one. It was so important because we do talk a lot about inspiring young people, making sure we feed the pipeline, which is really important and something that we need to do more of. But as you say, age is a protected characteristic, and it's not just the younger people. It's also, it's all ages. And it was really eye-opening. The speaker was from the Centre for Aging Better. And it was so fascinating for us as organisers, getting to know the organisation, speaking to the team there, the speakers, looking at how and where that's relevant to us in the media industry and specifically the broadcast tech side. And just being able to highlight to people in the room, have you thought about this? I mean, I think that's a lot of what Radio TechCon is. Have you thought about this? Have you seen this? Or what do you make of that? We try to be very open and to inspire discussion and debate. And the idea of, for example, a talk like that is firstly just to open people's eyes. I mean, we didn't know going into it what even the definition was of an older worker. So the Centre for Aging Better defined that as 55 plus. But, just things like that. So what does it mean? And why is it relevant? Why is it an issue? And just as you say, it sort of maybe might feel obvious when they say it, but beforehand you just think, yeah, actually, no, I probably couldn't have answered that question beforehand. And just knowing that there are things that you can do in your workplace, but also you as an individual, what are you entitled to? What should you be thinking about? What should you be asking potential employers or people that you're doing some work for in terms of what support you need? So really, really important session. This year we'll continue the theme of having kind of some sessions like that. So I'm really fascinated to find out more. We've got someone talking about modern slavery in the workplace and where that's relevant to us in media broadly and in engineering. And again, it's something that probably a lot of people have heard reference to and sort of know a little bit about. But I wonder how many of you would actually be able to give a definition of what it means or give some examples of where it's actually happening. I think it's going to be quite eye-opening. So that's one coming up at this year's Radio TechCon.
Sounds interesting. Okay, thank you for that. So, the last little snippet is one of the more technical ones about sound networks.
Firewalls especially, you can get incredibly powerful firewalls for not a lot of money now. Features, does it support everything you want? PTP is a really good example of this. It might say it supports PTP, but does it support transparent clock, which is your layer 2 thing? Now you then say, oh, I want to do PTP across layer 3. Now they might say, I do that, but most vendors only support the unicast variant of it. Now, if you're doing AES 67, you want the multicast variant of it. So you cut down the number of devices that you've got available for you.
So how long was that one? That's 22 minutes. So this is a good example of what you were saying about the ability to go in quickly and almost pinpoint precision, really good tips and tricks, yet you're not bogged down in an hour or two's discussion about something. There's always a couple of kind of masterclass style ones. And I remember the one that you mentioned about acoustics. That was really good because, again, part of the reason I like going is I don't work nowadays in radio. So it is nice to have a refresher or even to be told some element of acoustics that probably never did get told at the time. So, these things there does seem to be something a little bit for everyone. And I presume there's another masterclass on its way for this year.
There is indeed. So this year we've got a mini masterclass on VR and specifically how you can use VR in studio design. So we've got it's been a big year for radio. There's been brand new studios built by Bauer Media at their new home at the Lantern in London, Euston. And Radio 2 have moved out of their long-time home into New Broadcasting House, also with brand new studios. So we'll be looking behind the scenes at both of those.
Nice.
And really interestingly, we've got this mini masterclass on VR. So, if everyone's talking about VR, well, let's talk a little bit about what actually is it? How is it useful? And here's a practical application where we've literally been using it to design studios or to help with that design process and the build. So a really good example of where we go from basics right up to the latest that's happening now with examples. And one of the nice things as well is that there's the people in the room. You hear something on stage, and then you go for the coffee break and the people who were working on that are there in the room and you can go and have a chat with them about it and find out, what worked well, what wouldn't you do next time, how might I do this, or have you got the name of a good supplier? One thing to mention about all of our sessions actually is that we tend to avoid panels. So the idea of the sessions is very much to inspire discussion and debate, but to be quite short, sharp sessions. So your average session length will be around about 20 minutes. So, pretty short compared to technical conferences. And we put a lot of effort into producing them so that we get to the main nitty-gritty of the topic quite quickly, and then noting that there's time afterwards for you to then go away and talk about it and find out more about it. So every session will be anywhere from, some are even only 10 minutes up to about half an hour, and you'll have one or maybe two speakers with personal experience, professional experience in that area, telling you about a topic or a thing that they've done or some research that they've conducted. So rather than necessarily having a general topic and several people discussing in a panel, which, gives a very different type of experience. And then the other really important part of Radio TechCon is the networking. I keep mentioning this community that we have. So those breaks and the coffee breaks, the lunch, the time afterwards are as important to us as the talks on stage, because that's where you build a community. That's where you go and chat to the speakers, you talk to people with other experience of doing that. We have our sponsors who are exhibiting, and we have a family of sponsors who are very, very deeply invested in radio and the audio broadcasting sector. So it's very highly relevant stuff that they're showing you and talking to you about. And again, it's kind of an opportunity to go and chat through, oh, well, I'm working on this, I'm not really sure what to do about it. Can we just have a chat? So that side of it, of networking, getting to know each other, being able to talk about what's going on stage, being able to bring your own your own challenges that you're having at work or your own solutions to a conversation is really important as well.
And perhaps we should also say, I mean, I think it goes without saying that all these new radio studios are being built with video in mind as well. And so I think on top of the fact that there's such a wide range of topics, and some of them are technical, some of them are not. I think even if you're not directly within the audio world, there's plenty really, as long as you've got an interest in broadcast. I think it was last year when there was a rebuild, and they were talking about how it was all controlled centrally and how the studios were put together. And it's not that different from what you do in the TV world. Although what's perhaps important, I've always appreciated this in radio, is there's different ways of doing things. And I think their way that they explained about controlling the cameras and running through scripting, very much a radio way of doing it. And I think on the TV side, people come in and do things a different way. But at the end of the day, what's happening? Well, you're switching and you're getting your program done, right? So I think there's a lot to be learned from doing things in different ways, and so I personally appreciate that side. And are we letting the cat out of the bag too much by saying there's a quiz at the end, so you better pay attention?
Yes, yeah. Well, just on your point about kind of cross-platform, across the media space, I think it is really important and helpful to be able to get out of your immediate world, because that's where creativity flies. That's where you see different ways of doing things that you might not have thought of, and, more efficient, more cost effective, more creative, more interesting ways. And actually a lot of sessions, we are a radio audio broadcasting conference, and we that's very important to us. It is the only place that we can go as that community. But there are lots of topics that are very relevant across the board. Of course, things like the sustainability carbon calculating and the softer skills ones, but also we regularly have sessions on things like cybersecurity and protecting your networks, protecting your transmission spaces. We've had lighting masterclasses as well in the past of, how to, as visualization is becoming just a natural part of radio broadcasting, how do you effectively set up the lighting in your studio for the cameras? And of course, that's going to be a little bit different to a TV studio. But I think those sorts of topics, they're important. You might ask, well, why are we talking about lighting in a radio conference? Well, because it's relevant. We also have lots of sessions on app development, the latest in apps, different ways of using AI. So if you're interested in technology, and if you are interested in media and broadcasting, there will always be something that is really relevant to you. And part of the importance of going to conferences like this is to remember that we're all learning all of the time. None of us know it all. And even if we do today, we won't by tomorrow. So continuing lifelong learning and investing in your own personal professional development, as well as the professional development of your team and your organisation, is so incredibly important. And being able to get out of the workplace, come to an event like this and immerse yourself in it for a day is so valuable, because you go back to work and suddenly you're just bursting full of all of these different ideas and possibilities that just don't enter your inbox day to day otherwise.
You're quite right. It almost sounds impossible, but it isn't, because it's happened to me. So I'll just share the website, radiotechcon.com. So there you can find out information about the upcoming schedule and also buy the tickets. So
yes, please. And we'll be releasing the full programme, so you can check that out on the website. Loads of really interesting topics, and as you said, Russell, there will be a quiz at the end. This is a super fun way, led by the fabulous Stephanie Hurst, of just having a little recap through the day. And there are prizes to be won, so you don't want to miss that.
There are. Some of them are very impressive. There's tours of studios and all sorts. So thanks for coming on the show, and I really appreciate you being on. Big thanks to Becky and Fiona, who work hard behind the scenes to make sure that this show keeps going every week, and it's a lot of fun to be part of. So thanks for that. If you liked this, then please thank Aradhna for joining us by clicking like. Always make sure you're subscribed. That'll be the number one thing to do whenever you come and watch one of these videos. And just really want to say thank you very much, Aradhna. Look forward to seeing you in a few weeks, and hopefully we'll speak again in the future.
Thanks so much for having me. It's been great fun. Love talking all things Radio TechCon anytime.